Now it's time to be dangerous. Now it's time to get risky. Now it's time to truly find out what you're made of and what you could achieve. Now it's time to truly find out how many lives you can impact. Now it's time to find out what you were destined to become.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Raw Minds. I'm your host, Erick. If this is your first time here, this podcast is all about real conversations, no fluff, no pretending life is easy, just honest talks about mindset, mental health, growth, and stuff men keep buried inside. Because the truth is, a lot of people are walking around carrying pressure, expectations, failure, and doubt, but nobody talks about it. That's why Raw Minds exists. And today we're getting into something almost everyone can relate to: resolutions. Every year, people start the year fired up, new goals, new promises to themselves. This year's everything changes, then life shows up. Motivation fails, discipline slips, people fall back on track, and instead of learning from it, they just believe they're the problem. But what if the real issue isn't you? What if the issue is the system behind the goals? Today, I'm sitting down with Joey. Joey is a mindset and performance coach who works with people building systems that actually help them follow through on what they say they want in life. We're going to talk about the core values, setting goals, the actual aligning with who you are, building a plan, creating an action system, and having a recovery tool for when life knocks you on track or off track. Because the truth is, nobody stays perfect. The people who succeed just know how to get back up faster. If you ever started something and quit, if you ever told yourself this year will be different, or if you're trying to become a stronger version of yourself, this episode is for you. And if you get this, if you get something out of this conversation, do me a favor, share this episode, leave a comment, and follow Raw Minds so we can keep reaching people out there who need the conversation. And I just want to say thank you, Joey, for coming, man, and welcome to Raw Minds, brother.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a great introduction. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate it. And you know what? I'm excited to have this conversation. I just want to say thank you also for introducing me to your friend, Brooke. We'll be coming on here too. But I do want to start off. I like all my guests to, plug all where they came from, where people can find you, and all that. So if you can please plug your socials and everything.
Yeah, you can find me at Joey Chandler 70 on TikTok, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And my website is certaingrowth.com. And the part that we're talking about today is what I call the 3D printed life. And so I have the link there. Will give some more details because, like you said, everybody sets resolutions, but how can we actually make it happen? And I'm finding it's actually easier to take on 4 resolutions than 1.
Really? Okay. Well, I'm excited to get this. I know we spoke a little bit at the start there, and I love the 3D printed house and what you were telling me. So I'm interested in kind of getting into this because me personally, it's always, just stick to the one thing, and go hard at that. But I'm very interested. But before we get into that, please tell us who you are, man, where you came from, like what got you into this.
Yeah, my name's Joey Chandler. I live in Reno, Nevada. I'm a dad of an 18-year-old. He's actually right now in the middle of a pilot lesson, so I'm a little bit nervous because he's getting his pilot's license. I've been involved in self-awareness work and growth for a very long time, and over the past 3 or 4 years, really focused on core values and how we can bring more of our core values to our life. Because what I believe is that we all have core values, and the more that we can make use of them, the more effective we are at finding solutions, and most importantly, finding solutions that work for us. Excuse me, because what works for me may not work for you and vice versa. And really the goal is to figure out what works for each person and then just help them apply that over and over again to achieve whatever goals they're working for.
I love that, man. And how did you even fall in this? Was it just making goals and not completing them, or was that the battle? Because I know that for sure is a battle for me, you know what I mean? And my whole thing is though, everybody waits till the start of the year, New Year's resolution, but why the fuck can't you just start now? why do you have to wait? That's the thing too. I would like to touch on that at some point as well too, if we can, or even right now.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I thought about a lot, like why, whatever today is the 9th, right? Like you should be able to set a resolution for today. But I think there's something important and powerful and compelling to humans about starting new, starting fresh, beginning again. And because if it wasn't part of kind of our human experience, we would have left it to go a long time ago, because so many of us have failed at resolutions for so long. Like we would have let it go. But I think there's something about being human that starting new and starting fresh, that's why, when you start something, a new job or a new relationship, or you end a job or you end a relationship, there's that sense of, okay, I'm starting new. And so I think the New Year's resolution is just a natural reflection of that. And it's one reason why I think resolutions are so powerful, is because if you can really have a sense like, yes, I can take on a resolution and have some confidence with it, you start the new year in a vastly different spot than, yeah, I'll do something, but I'll probably fail by, January 15th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you see the big thing, and it's funny because I see people post this on social media all the time, is when the new year starts, the gyms are just packed, right? And then like probably about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks in, the gyms are just like back to not packed anymore. And that's the thing. Like I see that, and people just like, okay, I'm going to change. But what is it that, like, what do you think the fall off is on that?
I think there's a couple of things. One, I think the goals that we set are not aligned with our values. And when you have misalignment between really any goal and any action and your values, you create some rub between yourself and what you're trying to do. And that rub may not be an issue on any given day, but enough days in a row, you start to wear yourself down. You start to think like, I can't do this. This isn't going to work. Like maybe it works this week, but it won't work next week. And so you just end up stopping, especially when you get older and you're like, well, I failed for the past 40 years of resolutions. How am I going to, how am I actually going to do it again this year? What's going to be different? So I think that misalignment is an issue. The other part is that we don't have a recovery tool, a system for just being able to say, okay, I missed a day, I missed a week, I missed, whatever it is, because that's going to happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Do you have a system that you can take a deep breath, get grounded, figure out what was kind of in the way, and then start over? So you need that. And then the other thing that's really missing is that we don't have fun. Generally speaking, our resolutions are not fun. Like we don't have a sense of like joy and play and excitement and adventure and, whatever that is. And so when you add up all these things, it just ends up being a weight. There's no one thing I think that causes it all, or, you could point to one thing, but I think it's a kind of a death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing, where you aren't having fun. You don't have a way to recover, and they're not really aligned with your values anyway. So why bother? And it just ends up wearing you down, and you're back to wherever you started. In fact, even worse, because then you're like, well, this year's gone. I'll just wait till next year.
And then you're waiting on that whole, and then you're prolonging, pushing it ahead, and and like when you were talking there, it kind of reminded me. It's like going to a job that you hate every day, and waking up and just fucking hating life. And that's what it is. I like thinking about that, And
absolutely, yeah. And it's not like super much, but it's enough. And especially nowadays where there's so much stress and so much uncertainty and so much just stuff in the world, any little extra thing that weighs you down kind of gets magnified over time.
Yeah. And like grows in, like, even like we talk about this on, because it's a men's mental health podcast, but it's about like, you're pushing that weight down, you're pushing all that trauma down. It's eventually gonna explode, right? And it's the same thing like that. I never even thought about that though, like a recovery, because your mindset is so set on, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And let's face it, as human beings, we've already like, let's say 90% of us have already seen the goal and accomplished it in our head. Like that's how you move forward, right? But now you're mourning, it's almost like grieving, right? You have to grieve the process of, the failure, I guess you could say. I wouldn't really say it failure. But like the failure of stopping it, of stopping your resolution or whatever it may be, and now you're in a grieving process, like you're saying, like no one talks about that. So that actually, like, yeah, man, like, could you explain, like, maybe it's like how someone could, like, maybe after, say, going to the gym for like 3 weeks or whatever, like we were talking about, and then they can't do it anymore, they just stop. What would someone have to go through, do you think, like that, to, like, for a grieving process to fix that, like to get themselves out of that?
Yeah.
And this is not even knowing, like, this is like, you know what I mean? Like you might not even know that you're grieving, you know what I mean? Subconsciously, in a sense.
Yeah. That's one thing, is you have to be intentional. Like this, you don't recover from missing a week at the gym or not following through with whatever habit that you wanted to put in. Like I'm working on reading a book a month. That's one of my resolutions for this year. And if I were to miss a month, I haven't so far, but if I were to miss a month, I'd have to figure out, like, why, because I'm just not naturally going to pick it back up. Like that's going to happen. But the thing that so there's a couple things that really help. First off is to recognize that the ability to come back from something, to recover and to restart, you learn something about life that you would not have learned had everything been perfect. So like if let's say you go for 6 months, you work out every day. That's awesome. You should everyone should strive to do that, or you followed your plan, whatever that plan is. Everyone should strive to do that. But if you work out, say, for 3 weeks, then you miss a week, and then you come back and you figure out what stopped you in that week, and then you came back, you've learned something different or something new that you would not have learned had everything been perfect. And so I'm not saying anyone should try to miss their days, but when it does happen, something that is really fun and something that is interesting is that you're going to learn something new. You're going to learn something different, and that you can have some fun with. And again, this idea of bringing back some play, some fun, some curiosity to the resolution. So that's the first thing, to kind of give yourself a sense of like, hey, what am I going to learn in this moment is kind of helpful.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely. And like, sorry to cut you off. I just want to say, like, look for the lessons is pretty much what you're saying, is like, these are lessons. There's yin and yang for everything. There's a positive and negative. And just because maybe you failed, like you said, for that month, there's a positive somewhere in there. You just got to find it, right? And figure out where. And that positive could be, I failed, but I got back up. And it could be even just a small little thing or a big thing. Yeah. Who knows, right? But it's about finding those positives. I just want to clarify that for people that are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it strengthens you. When you know that you can recover, like knowing that you can fail and get back up, it's a powerful feeling. It's a much different feeling than knowing that I'm just going to keep going. That sense of like, I know that I can fail and get back up is huge. I think it was Muhammad Ali said, right? It doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. It matters how many times you stand up. And when you know that you're always going to stand up, it just gives you the freedom. You're not so stressed. You're not so worried. You're not so tied up with trying to be perfect. And when you do fail, which happens, there are a million different ways that could happen. You can take a deep breath and go through. There's then to recover, there's kind of a two things that you can do. At the very basic level, you can ask yourself, what do my core values say to do in this situation? And when you get clear on your core values, you get them down to 3, and they're ones that like mine are connection, curiosity, and fun. And so if I'm struggling at any point, I can ask myself, hey, how can I bring a little connection, a little curiosity, a little fun to this thing? And it will help me get going. It will give me something. Now, if that isn't enough, because sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes there's a bigger fear or a bigger doubt. I have these 6 questions that I walk people through that really kind of clear the air. The first thing is you always ask, what can I celebrate about yesterday? Because that gives a dopamine boost. That gives you a sense of like, hey, I accomplished something yesterday, so I can accomplish something today. Then you ask, what did I learn from that thing? And that will give you a sense of a growth mindset. Like you have grown from yesterday today in some way. So that gives you a sense of like growth. And then you can ask, what's the goal that I have? And maybe it's like, I want to get back to the gym. And then you ask, and this is a big one, what's the fear that comes up immediately when I when I think of that goal. I'm not good enough. It sucks. I failed once. I'm never going to start over. Doesn't matter what I do. Some version of that. And then you ask, what do my values say to do? And then from that, you choose one action that you can take today. And what that process does, asking what do my values say to do, will get you going. But that process, those 6 questions, is kind of a deeper cut. And that allows for, it creates dopamine in your brain, gives you a boost. It puts you into a growth mindset. It creates focus and direction by asking about your goals. It then acknowledges the fears, which are there. We all have them. You're not processing them. You're not doing any deep, where do they come from in my childhood sort of thing. You're just acknowledging them, that they're there. And then that gives the space for your values to really come up. And then when you choose one, you have clarity, you have confidence, you'll have a boost in energy. And that will get you going. So those 2 steps, what do my values say to do? It's kind of a lower level one. If you want to take a little bit of a deeper dive, the 6 questions, I call that the refinement engine. They help you keep going.
I love that, man. And you're actually like challenging yourself there in that situation, right? And what you're doing is you're challenging yourself and you're growing. It's growth, really, at the end of the day. Like you said, growth mindset, right? And it's growing. And the big thing is, too, is every time you fall down, it's going to be easier to get back up because, and it's like even the big things, if something big happens, it's going to be that much easier than it was because you've been in this situation before. And if you try these what would you call them? What do you call them?
I call it the refinement engine. They're just questions. They're not profound, or what makes those questions powerful is actually the order. Because if you don't celebrate yourself, it's hard to say, what did I learn from that thing? And if you don't learn, you can't really set a goal. And you're not going to be able to talk about your fears if you're not clear on your goals. And your fears are always louder than your values. So that's why you have to talk to them about, or you have to acknowledge them before you talk about your values. And then you can't choose a value-based action if you don't have from a list of each one of those questions is actually based in science. But what I did that's different is it's the order. It's the collection of those questions that makes the difference. And it takes a little bit of time, 6 questions. So that does take a couple minutes to kind of go through, but the guaranteed end result is that you walk away with clarity, confidence, and energy.
Yeah. And you like you said, and you have an idea, you have an idea of like what the problem is and where you stand after it, pretty much.
Yep.
So tell me about this, the 3D printing, man. I want to get into this. I'm very interested about this because I know we just talked a little bit about this. So
yeah, it's been really, really fun.
And
and
this came between like from the first time we talked and now today.
So this is what happened. So I was working on resolutions, as we talked about, and let's see here. We're going, and I started to recognize that the value work that I do, it applies to multiple areas. It applies to your money. It applies to your fitness. It applies to your fun. It applies to your romance. It can apply to a bunch of different areas. And I was starting to work with people in different areas. I'd get on a phone call, and one client, in about 30 or 40 minutes, one client, we would go from his business to his relationship to his fitness, all using the exact same process. And it just started, I'm thinking like, there's something here. And then I had that visual, something popped in my head of the 3D printer where, that you've seen it, right, with the cement, and it goes around layer by layer and it builds it up. And I was like, that's how I work, as opposed to kind of traditional coaching, which is you put up a wall of the house, you put up your money wall first, then your fitness wall, and then your fun wall, then your romance wall. You do them one at a time. And with the chaos and the uncertainty and the technology that we live in, where AI is changing everything, where you can pull up TikTok and within 10 minutes you can go through, 40 different problems that trigger something in your brain. The idea of doing everything at once, I just realized, I'm like, that doesn't work. I get the idea and it makes sense, but it doesn't work. And so what I started doing is with myself and my clients, we make an intention of every day we make one action for our fitness, our fun, our romance, and our business. We make sure that we take at least one action for each of those every day. And so that's like the layer of the house. And when we wake up and we're like, okay, I know what to do, then I go take the actions. When we wake up and we're really confronted, or we feel like, we can't do it or something, then we go through that refinement engine, those six questions, and that helps us then take the action. And I have to tell you that the experience of waking up every day and then going to bed every day, knowing that you moved your whole life forward at least a little bit, is a really powerful feeling. It's much different, even when I was that kind of this traditional approach where you work on growing your business, but you realize that your fitness or your relationship totally is off. And it's hard to balance it. But when you have this foundation of every day you're moving everything up at least a little bit, there's a level of confidence and certainty and freedom and way less stress than I've ever experienced. And so I call it the 3D printed life. And it really is just like, and I've started to develop a system where myself, I use fun, fitness, business, and romance, but you could choose your own 4. You pick 4 things that are there, and then you just work on every day, making a step towards that. And when you get stuck, you use the system. The other thing I've been really playing with just the theme of a 3D printer, that metaphor. And so I have this thing, I call it the somatic sensor. And it's the idea of you have a sensor in your body that is your body awareness telling you like when something is working or not. And if if you wake up really stuck or frustrated, that means it's time to use the refinement engine to kind of go through the process. If you're feeling really good, that means to go for it. That's the sensor telling you, what needs to be done. And that I'm a big believer that our body knows things before our brain does sometimes. And so if we build up the sense of me saying, you know what, when I go for that walk or when I make that phone call, it makes my body feel better. I want to do more of that. Yeah. Yeah. It even gets more interesting because sometimes when you're intentional with those 4 areas, when you learn something in your business, that can help you in your relationship. Or, you start to, those ideas start to percolate in your brain and you're like, oh, like one thing I saw, I'm on the dating apps. I'm like very clear on who I want to date, like who I'm looking for. And I get response, it's not like I get thousands. I'm not like a young hip kid who gets, thousands and thousands of people, but I get enough to keep me engaged in meeting meeting interesting people. And like, okay, there's some stuff, there's some potential here. But I realized I wasn't as clear in my business profile, who I was looking for as a client. I wasn't as clear. I'm like, oh, so let me work on that. And that was because I've put I'm working on these 4 areas together. And
your house isn't tipped, you know what I mean? That's how I think of it. Like,
yeah,
it's like, we do tests a lot. Like, I mean, I'm out of the construction, but in construction, we do a lot of tests, right? Well, you put a marble on the ground and you'll see if the marble rolls somewhere, right? And see if it's off balance. Well, that's exactly what it is, man, And if you are just building one side of your house, how do you think, you can't just build one foundation all the way up and build one side,
Yep.
Come back and then we're going to build up this side, come back. No, it doesn't make sense. And I think it's a great idea. I honestly do think it's a great idea where you touch, because if you put it in the mindset of the 3D printing where you want to bring the whole thing up at the same time, man. And it all complements each other, because how the fuck are you going to put a roof on if you only got one wall up? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, and the goal is to put a roof on and have a safe place for you, right? At the end of the day, man.
Yeah, and the way I look at it too is like the storm, the political and the social and economic and technological challenges. To me, those are like the storms that are around us. And if you have one wall up, that wall is just, that's going to get hit by the storm and fall down while you're trying to work on the other ones. And I like what you said about the roof. In my head, the roof is like, as you build up more layers and you can add a roof in, that's like your confidence. That's like a shield of confidence that just kind of protects you. And maybe your house is not as high or as big as you want immediately, but you're still grounded, you're still protected, you're still moving forward. And again, you can wake up with a sense of, I can move my life forward, because you can always move your life forward in one. The other day I was like, okay, I hadn't done anything in romance, for a day. And so, like, before I went to bed, I texted, one of the ladies from the dating app. Now, that's not a huge romance thing, but that's that checks the box. And then I can wake up the next day and do a little bit more. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this, the other thing too, because when I tell people this, sometimes they think like, man, I don't have time to do all these things at once. Like, my life is already maxed out. How am I supposed to do, take on 4 things at once, which totally makes sense. And if you had told me that before I started doing this, I would probably think the same thing. But here's how this saves you so much time. Because one, you wake up and okay, I'm going to do these 4 things. I just know that I'm going to take care of these 4 things. Like, you're not worried about anything. You're just like, okay, I'm going to do that. And that gives you some clarity and some certainty. The other part is, do you have, I have this term, it's called productive procrastination. It's like when you're avoiding, there's something you should be doing, but you're avoiding it by doing something else.
That's me, man. That is totally me, bro. I'll tell you, that's me. And I definitely, man.
Right. And so what happens is like, when you have these 4 layers, after a few days, it's very hard to take actions that don't somehow fulfill on one of those areas. Like, if I, pretty much throughout my whole day, not 100%, but an awful lot of the day now, it's either helping with my money, my fitness, my fun, or my romance. That's what I'm working on one of those. So even if my fun thing is to call a friend of mine and talk about going to do a thing when I really should be calling the sales guy, I should be making a sales call. At least I'm moving forward in an intentional area of my life. And that experience of calling my friend will give me a boost in confidence that will help me with the sales call a little bit later. And so it's all moving up just a little bit at a time. And so at the end of the day, it actually saves you so much time. Then also because you get new ideas, what help you with your fun, help you with fitness, and so on. And then the other part is you start to see how you can combine things. Rather than working out alone, you call up a buddy. That covers for me, that would cover my fun and my fitness.
Oh, okay.
I decide
even relationship too.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be it could be platonic relationship as well. So you could be doing 3 in 1.
Exactly. Yeah. You could do, you decide to go, instead of going to a super fancy restaurant, you go for a rock climbing trip, like a rock climbing. Yeah, you go rock climbing with your date. That would be fun. That would be fitness. That'd be romance, and it would save you some money. So that helps with the job. So and then you start to see those things. Then you're like, oh, okay, I can do this, this, and this. So at the end of the day, when you put it in, it saves you time. It gives you energy. It just takes a little bit of work, to set it up.
And that's the part where you're like making fun with it too. You could even make a game with it. Like, how many of my core values can I fit into one activity or whatever, and knock it off all at once, but in a healthy way, not like, because I could see people, I'm going to do it all at once, so then I don't have to do it for the rest of the day or whatever. You know what I mean? But yeah. I mean, like in a healthy way, but you can make it fun like that. And like, I want to touch on something that I brought up like 2 days ago with a friend of mine, and you you said, have fun, let's like, we're supposed to have fun. And I want to bring this up. It's a little off topic, but we are just big kids at the end of the day, and we forget how to have fun. We really do. We become older, become adults, as we call it, adults, and we really forget how to have fun. We get strict, we get, we forget to be kids. We're really just big kids that don't wear diapers, that pay bills at the end of the day. So I just want to say out there to anybody that's listening, be a big kid. Don't forget to be a big kid out there, and don't forget to have fun. Play in the water, fucking do a bum drop on the trampoline, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, be a kid. I just wanted to say that because I think that's a huge thing that we forget as we get older, is we forget to have fun.
Absolutely. And do you mind if I put a little science in here to explain?
No, do it, brother. Please, man. Please.
Yeah, there's a researcher. Her name is Barbara Fredrickson, and she developed this model called the broaden and build model. And what she basically says is words like fun, play, creativity, adventure, those types of words broaden our awareness in a situation and allow us to build. So, so this is why play is not just like a good idea because it's fun, which is, should be enough. But if you actually want like scientific reasons, imagine you're in a, you're in a boardroom and you and your team are working through some big challenge. Your body in times of stress, your body's going to want to focus in, right? Just let me just get hyper focused, because like when we were running from bears and tigers, your job was to get focused and get away as fast as you can. But when you're dealing with a challenge like growing a business or maybe having a difficult conversation with a spouse, or just resolving something with yourself and your kid, like that, when you get stressed and you get focused, you actually narrow the number of options that you can see. And in those moments, you get blinders, right? Because that's how our body is designed. We're like, okay, this is bad, this is stressful, this sucks. Let me focus in and go in. But what really, in those moments, what you really need is a sense of play, a sense of curiosity, a sense of innovation, so that you broaden your awareness and you can start to see different ideas of how to solve the problem. Because if the focus problem actually worked, you'd have the problem already solved. But the problem is it doesn't. And and this is where practicing bringing a sense of fun, and sometimes people say, well, like, does that just mean like, you're doing your taxes and you just want to joke around? Like, no, like when you see a kid play, like a kid's playing fireman, and like they are focused, like they are in that world, they are doing everything, like they aren't just like willy-nilly, they are with intention, running their fire truck up and down the sidewalk, and you cannot tell them anything else, but they are a fireman. And I'm not saying be a fireman in your, but you can bring a sense of creativity, a sense of play, and you start to get new ideas. And I think the problem is when we lose that sense of play, we stop realizing that we are creative beings, that we are curious beings, that we can approach this with a sense of adventure or sense of exploration and come up with new ideas. And
have fun at it.
Yeah, and have fun at it. And so that's why, having fun and having play and bringing that energy to a situation not only is good energy-wise, like what you said, we forget that that's part of who we are, but it actually is research-backed, will make you more effective at your job.
Well, you know what, like, and it makes sense. Like, so I had to reference, because I'm in construction. Well, was in construction for about 20 years. But like when I was a deficiency superintendent, right, I would have to look at like these white walls. We call them just a whitewash, right? Because you keep on looking at these white walls to see all the deficiencies, see if there's marks, dings. And I mean, I'm staring, I got my iPad, I'm walking around, but I'm staring at white walls all day, you know what I mean? And I'm just focused, you know what I mean? And then you got someone else comes in and like, oh, hey, and you take like a piece of tape, depending blue, green, whatever, and that's where you mark it for the guys to fix it. And then, a buddy will come in, oh, you missed one. and you could be staring at the thing forever. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's because you're so focused, you know. And then you got another person that comes out and they see the broad picture because they're not, you know, and then they see that and boom. And it's kind of like the same. I use construction a lot because I work in it, but it's kind of like that. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I just finished reading Esther Perel. She's a very famous sex and relationship therapist. She wrote a book called Mating in Captivity, and it's all about how to maintain passion and sex and romance in a long-term relationship. And one of the things that she says over and over again is that you have to come with a sense of curiosity. And like that job, like you can imagine you go into a white, well, after a while, everything looks white. Like it's hard to see.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so in that situation, your challenge is how can I create something new here so that I can come in with fresh eyes and pick up on those things that I see. That's like, if you really wanted to get better at your job in that role, you would have to figure out how can I bring some creativity, some curiosity, that sense of seeing fresh. And it's the same thing with relationships. You get into a relationship for a long time, it's very easy to fall into habits and you know, well, you do this and I do this and we go to bed and kind of hate each other, but you know, that's what it is. And our job is how can I bring a sense of curiosity? How can I bring a sense of creativity? How can I get past the fears and the doubts of me saying this is what I do want or don't want so that we can have that freshness? And that's hard. You know, like that's a great example of that.
You forgot and fun.
And fun. Yeah, exactly. And fun. But like, you can imagine like it'd be such an interesting experience, right? Like how can I walk into this white wall, this white room? It's the 10th or the 100th white room I've seen today. How can I walk in here with fresh eyes?
Well, and the trick is actually is you just focus now on the floor and you deal with that and you look for, and that's what it is. You focus somewhere else for a bit. You let your eyes adjust, you know, and you deal with that, and then you come back to it after. You know what I mean? Because there's only so much of. You imagine 8 to 12 hours in between that. You're looking at white walls, looking for deficiencies for these multi-million-dollar homes. You know what I mean? Some are like big. Like I did a penthouse here in Vancouver. It was $32 million, man. A penthouse. Actually, it wasn't even the penthouse. This lady's house, she had 2 floors and a hot tub and a pool on. Like she had like the mid-rise part, right? So there's and she had her own pool, own hot tub, man, in this high rise. Like halfway up, insane here, dude. You know what I mean? So, but I'm saying, so you're staring at walls, you know?
Yeah, and here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part. There's parts of her life that she hates.
Oh yeah, definitely, man.
You know, there's parts of her life that she hates, and this is the fun part. It'd be the same thing. Like, okay, lady, you've got this incredible pool. How can you bring some curiosity? How can you bring some play? I used to live in San Francisco, so we would drive across the Golden Gate Bridge, right? And we'd be like, man, this sucks. There's traffic. There's, you know, fog. There's whatever, you know, and people. And but then I would talk to people. There'd be people who saved up their entire life savings to go to one trip, spend 1 week in San Francisco, and it would be the trip of their lifetime. It would be, they'd be so blown away, so amazed. And there we were, pissed off with our coffee because there's traffic. You know, like
That's the same here in Vancouver, brother.
Yeah, same thing. Like
we have Whistler. You know, Whistler is one of the nicest mountains for skiing. You know, you can go in Vancouver. You can go skiing and swimming in the ocean in the same day. You know, skiing on the mountains and swimming in the ocean. You know, we have mountains surrounding us. It's beautiful here. We barely get snow, and I mean, I live here and we take it for granted, man. I'll tell you, I take it for granted. I really do. You know, and I'll be the first person to say this in Vancouver. I take it for granted, but I mean. I don't know.
And that's where the 3D printed, I think, life can really help, because it would be easy to say, I'm going to go out and ski and swim. Like, you know, I'm not going to declare I'm going to do that. But what would be more helpful long term is to build up a life where you're doing those sorts of things or other fun things on a more regular basis. And you're taking the steps and you have that foundation to where someone says, hey, let's go do the Vancouver day. You're like, awesome. I've already been doing this part. Now let me go do this other thing. And that's the other part I really like about the 3D printed model, is that it builds up your confidence. And when you're ready to take a big step, you have that foundation.
And you open the door and you step right outside of that bad boy, brother.
There you go. Exactly.
So how, like, what's the name? Like, what's the name for this model, 3D model that you came up
the
with?
3D printed life.
3D printed life. And how did it just, like, how did you stumble upon it? Because, like, to be honest, it's kind of funny you bring this up because I've been looking at 3D printers for the last, like, 4 days here, just for my home. I really have, because I think they're great. You can do a lot of things, you know what I mean? So and my daughter's been asking for one, so I've been thinking about getting a 3D printer here.
That's awesome.
But, like, how did this come, man?
Yeah, the thing that allows for it to happen is because everything I do is based on values. And so when we get to know your values and then you learn that system, those 6 questions for applying your values to different areas, what happens is that you don't have to learn a new system for each area. Right now, the traditional mind says, I'm going to learn a system for my business. I'm going to learn a system for my romance. I'm going to learn a system for my fitness and a system for, whatever. And that is exhausting and overwhelming and will collapse in on itself.
Yeah.
What allowed me to see this is basically waking up every day and saying, okay, what are my values? How can I bring more of them to these different areas? I started working with clients and I saw that it, that we could, not just could, but it made sense to take on multiple areas at once because we had this foundation. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel each time. Somebody was struggling, with their business. Okay, what do your values say to do? Boom, take some action. I'm really stuck with my relationship. Okay, let's go through the 6, kind of the full questions to kind of really work through the fears. Then we go take that action, and so it just kind of started to come together. But here's the part. This is like, so I've been doing it now for a couple months, and this is the part that is, I don't know if I can say this, but I just have to put it out there. Like because I'm taking on romance like all the time, you walk around, let's just say very excited about dating a whole heck of a lot. There's this, and I have a client, he's like, Joey, I am turned on all the time. Like, I don't know what to do. and I was like, I am too, like, it's because, like, when you have confidence and you're working on your body and you're working on your mindset and you're adding it to your business and a relationship, like, you really start to feel
it's that abundance, right? It's that abundance.
It's abundance, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's you're bringing this energy and, like, okay, I can definitely, like, contest to this. I think that's the right word. Where in a time of my life, I was a lot younger, and I was, like, top of my game. You know what I mean? Like, I was just everything was flowing in my life. Like, everything was flowing. It was a perfect time. I mean, I was into some bad stuff, don't get me wrong, but everything was flowing. And I would be walking, and, like, the energy, the mojo, I guess, was just oozing off. And that's what it is like you're oozing off this, and you see people looking at you, and you feel it, and you just feel great, and, like, and then also, like, you are just like when you're feeling like this, you throwing off this energy, and people pick off. And it's funny because you don't think this, but you're walking down the street and you have this great energy. That energy is going to feed off to other people as they're walking, and they may not pick it up, but that energy, because we are energies, we're balls of energy, right? Like, it's known when you die, it's scientific fact that energy leaves your body. Like, it's a scientific fact. You look it up, you can Google this shit, that they have they recorded some kind of, like, energy that leaves your body when you're, and they don't know if that's the soul, but it's some kind of like energy shit. And we don't really go too much into that here, but I mean, it's who knows, man? Who knows, right? But that's what I think. Like, energy is huge, and everybody's I haven't really talked about this before, but everybody might think I'm a little crazy here, but I see, like, colors of auras, like a light faint of, like, colors of auras around people, and it's, like, almost like energy, and it's probably the last about, I don't know, 12 years I've really, like, can feel people's auras, like, their energies and different colors give me that. And you might think I'm crazy. It might be all the weed that I smoked, who knows? But I mean, I feel it, bro. I'm telling you, you know what I mean? Like, it's usually on point. You know, the colors, like I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
I definitely think as you become more aware of yourself, you're able to pick that up on other people. And so as I get more, I call it a somatic sensor. Somatic is just,
I love that, by the way.
yeah,
I love
it's
that,
just
by the way.
checking in with your body. Like, does this feel right? And the more, so two things happen. The more that I'm aligned with, I take actions that align with my values and are serving goals, and I feel that good feeling. My sensor is kind of like, that's what we want. So two things happen. One, if I'm doing something that doesn't align, or I'm resisting, or I'm not taking the action I know to take, like that sensor goes off, and I can feel even worse sometimes. But it's just saying like, hey, we're off here. Yeah. And also when I'm talking to people, I just have a stronger sense of, when someone says, hey, I'm fine, I'm able to just pick up a little bit more like, are you sure? Like, cause it doesn't feel that way. And, not in a rude sort of way, but I'm just a little more aware of it. So it makes me a better coach. It makes me a better dad. It makes me a better friend. And it's all grounded in just, me having a deeper understanding and more practice, taking actions that align with my values.
And like you said, you're putting your fingers in every pot of your values. So it's all growing at once, like we said. Like, would you think that, like this, put the marble in the room, right? And let's say you're feeding your business, but now your like romance is going down, right? That's gonna be, you know what I mean? It's the weight's gonna be off, man. And I think that you're like, I think you're really honest. I honestly, like, no bullshit. I think you're onto something here and bringing everything up, man. Like,
yeah.
it's like the scale. It's you want to be even in the scale. You know what I mean? You want that. I think it was, what was his name? He's an actor. He goes, all right. That guy. What's his
Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, man. And he, like, I have his book, and he does that amazing speech. I don't know if you heard it, the graduation, but I listen to that all the time. It changed. Like, I just got goosebumps. It's my favorite speech all time. And the stuff that he says in there, man, it just blew. Oh fuck! I forgot where I was going with this now, because the all right, fucking up. It's gonna it'll come back, but yeah, it'll.
Well, the idea, I think for business people, another benefit of this 3D approach is by taking on the multiple components of your life, you actually have more experience, and you're going to be able to better help your clients. So like if you have improved your business and your relationship, and let's say you have a client who wants to improve their business but is struggling with their relationship, you're just going to have a better, you're going to have more to talk about. You're going to have a better relationship. You're going to be able to say, hey, that sounds really hard, but here's how I got through it, and you're just a better resource in all, for a lot of different things. So not only does it help you immediately, but it lays the foundation for yourself. And it just makes your life way more interesting. I know before I did this, I was really focused on my business. And so every conversation I had was about my business. And honestly, I was boring. Like, I was boring myself. I'm sure my family was like, if you weren't related to me, I would kick, we'd stop talking to you. But now I'm reading books. I'm talking to more people. I'm going to museums. Because those are all like parts. I'm like, how can I have some fun today? I'm just doing more things. So it contributes to my experience, and I think it makes me more interesting to be around. You'd have to talk to my family to really explain that. But and it just gives me more confidence. I'm like, I know we can figure out a solution even if we're really, really stuck.
Well, and that way then you start turning into the Disaki guy, right? The most interesting man in the world when you start doing all these other things. You know what I mean? You start doing all that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm quite there yet, but yes, but the interesting people do interesting things, and I think we're all way more interesting than we realize, but we got to put a little work into it. Yeah.
Well, normal's just a setting on a dryer, my friend.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. Well, brother, it's getting to that time, man. I just want to say thank you again. But I can you please once again plug all your stuff so people can know where to get a hold of you, like all your socials and stuff, one more time.
Yeah.
And I just want to say everything will be in the bio, guys. So feel free, hit the bio and show some love, man, and check it out.
Yeah, so this program has really just been launched in the last couple of months, and I'm really looking for some people that want to take on this approach. Like, I want to build up some success stories. So if you go to the certaingrowth.com/3D printed, I basically lay out the case for the approach, and I say, here's the program that we're offering at a discount for people. So if there's some people, especially guys, that are wanting to elevate their whole life, I would love to talk to them. We'll talk. We'll make sure that we're a good fit for each other, and then you'll move forward. And it's really not that complicated, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun. So I would love to talk to people.
Hell yeah, man. And I just want to say too, like, for other people out there, you know, it's for coaches, it's a like a two-way streak, right? So like, you need to be able to want it as much as, you know what I mean? You want to be able to want it, right? So be able to want this and then do it. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, always want, you know, be in the spot where you're ready to want to change your life. And I've been there where you know, I've been like, oh, I want to change, but then tomorrow I'm sleeping in for, you know, and like, I get it, you know, I get it. And sometimes you're just not ready in that moment in life. You may not be ready. But then again, when is the right time really to start? Right?
Yeah, and that's where I really, if someone's like, I really want to improve my business, or I want to improve my relationship, or I want to improve, you know, something, give me the chance to make the argument for why doing 4 things will actually be more effective and easier than focusing on that one.
And
because and let me, you know, give me that chance, because it's a counterintuitive argument. I totally understand it. But if working on one thing at a time worked, we'd all be way more successful.
I think you're onto something. I honestly do. No bullshit. Like, I think that you really are onto something here.
Yeah, thank you.
One side. Like, I remember Matthew McConaughey said, like, you know, it's like he's got to feed. So if he's slacking on, you know, his family, but he's slacking on his family, but his friends is up, then you take a little bit from your friends, put in family. It was kind of like that. You know, and he was saying something like that in the speech. But what you're saying is now, like, everything, you know, and micro, it could be micro, you know what I mean? Micro implements of it. It doesn't have to be, you got to go, like, fucking climb Mount Everest, you know, get a supermodel and hit the lotto, all, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be all this. Micro shit. I mean,
absolutely. Like, you know, like this, I'm going to put down underneath my money side, my business side, and my fun side, because I love having these conversations. I love this. This will contribute in business in some way, but and you start to just, you'd be like, oh yeah, I did 2, you know, like, I did 2 things. I moved my life forward in 2 ways. And if you knew that, if you knew you did that every day, that gives you a level of confidence to take on bigger things. That is, again, it's really hard to describe, but it feels very, very real.
And you might not even know that you're doing it, but being aware of you doing it now and having that mindset will change. You know what I mean? So be aware, like, stop and smell the fucking roses for once. You know
Absolutely.
What I mean? Like, seriously, you know, and I say it all the time on the episode, like, you have to stop and smell the roses. Everybody's in a rush to go nowhere nowadays, you know, and that's the truth. Everybody's in a rush to go nowhere, you know? Well, guess what? You're here right now watching Raw Minds, and you better fucking watch the rest of the other episodes and stuff like that, because we're here to change lives and all that fun shit. So I just want to say, Joey, I appreciate it, man. I thank you for reaching out. Thank you for introducing Brooke. I can't wait to have a great conversation with her as well.
Oh, she's incredible. Brooke is a force, yes. a true force of nature. She's really remarkable.
She told me a skier, right? She was on the mountains and doing all that. She's told me a couple. Yeah. So I'm very excited to have a conversation with her. And
yeah, I can't wait to see it. She's a true force of nature for sure.
It'll be actually here, man. I'll let you know if you give me a second here. I'll tell you. When is she coming on here? Sorry, oh, you guys see my calendar now. Give me a second. Let me see here. She is coming. I don't even know. Where do I have her next month? I have to do this. Anyways, I'm not going to do this on my show. She'll be here. I'll let you know. Everybody just saw my calendar anyways, but who cares? I don't give a fuck. You see. Anyways, guys, please, all info will be in the bio. Check out Joey and give it a try, man. I mean, he really is onto something, you know. Why just focus on one thing when you can bring up your whole life in increments, you know, and be happy and touch all aspects of it instead of spending years fixing one thing when you could be years fixing it all, right? So thank you again, Joy. I really appreciate you coming out, man. I appreciate reaching out, and I'm really happy that we connected on Facebook, man, and all that went forward. So
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next one. Take it easy. Bye.